Hello and welcome back to the Hooligan Report. We've had a bit of a break over the international break, and with me today I just have the lovely Bojan.
Hi, Sam. Hi, all.
So it's going to be a nice intimate one-on-one, I think, today. So how have you found the international break? We'll start with that.
I haven't really paid a lot of attention outside of the updates on the board. International qualifiers aren't really my thing, to be honest, but it's nice to see Rooney break the record.
I was going to ask you
He,
about that. Yeah.
he's not England's greatest ever goal scorer. That's really between Jimmy Greaves and Gary Lineker, but he's been a fantastic player throughout his England career, and people bash him over the head about his record in major tournaments. I think he scored 5 goals or 6 goals in major tournaments. But what people forget is that in every major tournament he's played in outside of those Euros when he came onto the scene, he's gone in half fit. He's gone
Yeah.
in injured. He's kind of like Beckham, actually. He broke his metatarsal twice before major tournaments and got injured during major tournaments. But, you can't argue with 50 goals for your country. He's been a great servant for England.
It's quite interesting because I think there was initially quite a bit of criticism about him taking the record off Charlton, but when you look at the goal scoring records side by side, which I only did for the first time the other day, but they're actually quite similar, and in a lot of ways Rooney comes off a lot better than Charlton. I mean, there's that perception that he's scored the bulk of his goals against your San Marinos and Andorras and that sort of thing, but I mean, Bobby Charlton back in his day, he's playing against Wales and Scotland, Northern Ireland and stuff when they weren't flash hot sides and the USA and all that sort of thing. So I wouldn't say Rooney's underserving of the record at all, really.
Well, it's interesting you talk about Charlton's record. So I'm not sure how many people will know this, but back in that time when Charlton was playing, they had this thing called the Home Nation Championships. And I think it was every couple of years, basically, um, it, in between World Cups, I think. And yeah, so they all played each other. Now, it wasn't a lay down misere for England at that time because Scotland had a fantastic team during that time. People remember well, not many, probably the listeners here will remember the Celtic Lions, which are the first British team to win the European Cup. They were pretty much all Scottish and were the heartbeat of the Scotland team. Wales had a couple of players. Northern Ireland had George Best, obviously. But the main thing that Charlton has over Rooney, well, a couple of things. He was a attacking midfielder, not a centre forward. And in addition to that, Bobby Charlton scored, I think it was 4 goals during England's World Cup
In the
win in
World Cups, yeah.
1966. But not just in the World Cup, but in the World Cup they won.
Yeah.
So the big stage, big game. Yeah.
And that's it. I mean, Rooney's only scored one goal at the World Cup finals, I think, from memory. So that's probably going to count against him a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see if he can add to those. If he goes to the next World Cup, would that be a possibility for him, or is it just beyond him?
In terms of staying on
Still
to the
being
next
still
World
being a
Cup.
part of the England setup, I suppose.
Well, I mean that's the problem is that when you make these guys captain, you kind of dictate, now the onus is on them, and they're dictating the players actually dictating terms. So I mean it could be argued that David Beckham stayed on too long and he was captain.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how long he stays on for. I mean it's all about form, and the only bloke that's actually coming after him is Harry Kane, really, and they actually work well together playing for England. There's no one, I mean, like the Berahino's not at that level, Ings nowhere near that level, Charlie Austin, no, Berahino, no. Someone actually has to, and rightly, someone should have to push him out the door.
Well, I mean, Jamie Vardy's waiting in the wings.
Oh, jeez. I mean, I tell you what, he's a FIFA player, that bloke.
Yeah.
In the last FIFA where all you had to do was be quick and you just
Yeah.
hit these guys' space and just run, put the accelerator on. That's what Jamie Vardy is.
And then he'll
Might be
go down
something
in the
that
box.
not that. Oh, jeez. The other thing with Rooney too is that he's played in a team, And despite the team sheet on paper, outside of when they underspend, where they debatably should have beaten Brazil in that World Cup quarter final, they've been putrid, really putrid throughout that period, despite the names in the team sheet. So that should come into consideration. People's thinking on Rooney.
Well, speaking of United strikers, we might move on to chatting about the deadline day signings that happened in the early hours of Wednesday morning last week. And probably the biggest name was a move to United in Marshall, who I think everyone, when they first heard of the transfer, kind of went, "Who?" So what can you tell us about your newest striker?
Anthony, I think it's Martial or
Martial,
Martial or
Marshall,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Eminem. As I'm dubbing him. So he started off. Well, he started off his career as a junior at the same club as Thierry Henry, and that's kind of feeds into those kind of those comparisons with him. He got snapped up when he was young by Leon, and he holds the record for most youth goals of anyone in France. He had, I think it was when he was 17, I think it was 37 goals in 20 games.
Jeez.
He scored for the youth team there, and then he got a move after he only played 3 or 4 games for Lyon, sorry, and Monaco paid €5 million for him. Now that's like pretty big money, particularly in France, where they haven't got a lot of money outside of PSG. The other clubs don't have much cash, so that was huge, and he's done pretty well at Monaco. When he joined there and was playing, Berbatov was up front, so it was kind of a bit of a second fiddle impact sub kind of thing. They play a 4-3-3, which suits what Van Gaal wants to do. The other similarity people draw with Thierry Henry is that he starts centrally and he drifts out wide to the wing on the left-hand side, and then he cuts in.
I mean, I was a bit hesitant to label him a striker because he's not really an orthodox striker, is he? He prefers to play a bit more out wide. So in a way, he's a bit complementary to Depay.
Well, that was last season. So
Okay.
Berbatov's gone. He's gone to is it PAOK?
PAOK, I think it was.
in Greece. So at the start of this year, they played him centrally.
Right.
Well, they played him as their main striker, and yes, he roams a lot, which is actually quite good because it's difficult as a defender to kind of track those runs. And he's played well at the start of the season. He almost won. In France, there's only 3 Champions League spots. The team that comes third goes into the playoffs, similar to United finishing fourth and to play the playoffs. They played against Valencia, and he almost got them over the line on his own. As 18, 19-year-old, barely 19-year-old kid. I'll tell you a little bit about him. Admittedly, outside of watching him play against Arsenal in the Champions League, where he gave Bellerin and Mertesacker an absolute bath, I haven't seen anything else of him live outside of what's on the internet.
Yeah.
But what I can tell you, he is lightning quick. He has very good close control. He's a very good dribbler. And he's quite composed when he's in front of goal. However, he's inconsistent. He's not the greatest passer of the ball.
Which, I mean, you can say about most 19-year-olds, to be honest. It's not really a huge blight in his game at that stage, I would think.
Exactly. And people saying they pay too much. Look, the numbers, it's only £36 million kind of up front. The rest of them are add-ons. If they'll pay the full, I think it's £58 million if he wins the Ballon d'Or in the next 4 years. I'll be happy to pay that.
Yeah, top goal scorer in the league, I think, was one of them, and all those sorts of things.
That kind of also, I mean, although that's kind of a little bit laughable, that kind of shows you how highly Monaco rated this kid. They really didn't want to sell him. United were only, I mean, Monaco knocked back everyone because United have been after him. PSG went after him, City, Chelsea, Barcelona after him. The only reason they let him go is because they didn't get that Champions League money because they lost to Valencia in that playoff, and that's the only reason they let him go. And they didn't let it go with without a bid fight, as you can tell by that kind of fee. People are saying yes, it's eye watering, it's too much. People said the same thing about Wayne Rooney. People said the same thing about Rio Ferdinand. Same thing about a stand that no one knew. So let's just not write this shit off just yet. The main thing is that he needs to be mentally strong enough to cope with that price tag, and I don't think the ability and potential can be questioned, but no one really knows what it's like in terms of his persona. Can he handle it?
Yeah,
So
and
that,
I think he's expressed surprise himself at the price tag and the move and that sort of thing. So, in one sense, I feel like he is trying to keep quite a level head about it and sort of say that it's not his responsibility for how much clubs are going to pay for him. He's just got to go out there and perform. But I do wonder a little bit whether the supporters and others will just sort of look at him with an expectation that he'll be able to perform straight from the offset, and if he isn't scoring goals, then they might turn on him, and that's the issue, is whether he can cope with that sort of pressure. So I
well, you
suppose
know
we'll have to see.
what's amusing is that they were interviewing on deadline day, interviewing Thierry Henry, Guillaume Balagay, and Ian Holloway, and also after that, Ray Parlour. Ray Parlour, never seen him play, just said it was a waste of money without seeing him play.
Yeah,
Um, Balagay said it's a lot of money, but the Valencia coaches he had spoken to, including Phil Neville, said that this kid's the real deal. Thierry Henry said he has pace. If you watch the video, he says he has pace about 4 times in a row without really providing more than that. So the English press can be pretty brutal with Johnny Foreigner. So we'll see how long they give him. The United fans will get behind him. United fans always get behind young kids, give them an opportunity. Don't mind that. He might cop a bit from elsewhere though.
fair enough. We'll move on to some of the other clubs that had a bit of action on deadline day, and probably the club that tried to get the most deals over the line was West Ham, who managed to sign Victor Moses on loan from Chelsea, which I thought was probably a pretty good deal for them. They also got Jelavic from us for about £3 million, and they also got what's his name? Michael Antonio from Nottingham Forest. So, I mean, those were the three big deals that they managed to get over the line, which were probably pretty impressive for them on the whole. But almost their best success, I think, was avoiding bringing in Adebayor from Tottenham, who they were after until the very, very last minute.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I mean, the most important signing they've made is Dimitri Payet. He looks like he should be playing. He kind of looks like when Kabay turned up in the Premier League. You're thinking, what's this bloke playing at Newcastle? That's what I'm thinking about Dimitri
Yeah.
Payet. He's a very creative player. He's controlling games for them. You're thinking, there's a fat chance he's playing there next year.
Yeah, I mean, if
Because
he continues the
someone's going
form,
to come in for him.
yeah, if he continues the form he started the season with, you'd expect one of the bigger clubs to come in for him.
You'd probably say the same thing about Andre Ayew from Swansea.
Yeah.
So there's no chance of him being there next year to do the player. They won't be able, I highly doubt they'll be able to keep him. But yeah, it's amazing with all the money now in the Premier League, and it's only going to keep increasing. These what you traditionally class as middle tier teams, they've got depth and they've got quality depth, really quality depth. But that depth would probably make up a mid-tier Premier League team on its own 5-10
Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just incredible. I think I saw an article in the lead up to deadline day discussing just the fact that the bargaining power of these mid-tier English clubs has just skyrocketed with these TV deals, and the caliber of the players that they're able to bring in, and sort of offset that lack of Champions League or European competition with excess wages, compared to what the European clubs are able to offer them. And it makes it quite tough for those European clubs to really compete for that kind of crop of players.
Well, that's right. I mean, that's the reason why Bielsa walked out of Marseille, is because they basically half his team got poached by Premier League clubs, and they didn't. And it's just like, well, if our club, being Marseille, is not showing enough ambition to try and, or we can't afford to, what's the point? But it was interesting. One of the most interesting things about deadline day I found was Charlie Austin not leaving QPR,
Yeah,
and he's got 1 year left. There's no way he's re-signing. I'm not sure. It's kind of refreshing that he didn't kick up a bit of a stink. But if he's playing Premier League, he's in the England squad.
I
If
mean
he's not playing Premier League, he won't be.
that's what I wanted to touch on that when you mentioned Austin earlier as not really competing with Rooney for a starting spot. I mean, we know what Austin can produce in the Premier League. Does the fact that he's still at QPR really harm his chances that much? What is the reason? Purely because he's not playing against that caliber opponent week in week out? I mean, it's not as if his personal skill has dropped off.
Well, it's like when you see these, say, a Gareth Barry go from Aston Villa to Manchester City, and suddenly he's in the England squad and he's starting games. Same thing with
Yeah,
James Milner.
I
You
don't know
know,
if that's
these.
necessarily the way to go though. I don't know if that's
I'm not
necessarily
saying that that's the way to go, but
okay.
that's the way it happens. So Charlie Austin being in the Championship, it will just be completely ruled out. I'd imagine he might be a part of a few squads if he's lucky. I'm a little bit kind of disappointed. I mean, we've touched on it today on the board about James Wilson going out on loan. A good scenario for United would have been to send James Wilson out on loan. You know, he's going to Derby, probably go to Premier League the season after that, and we could have paid the 12 to 15 million that GPR are after and get a quality backup in.
Yeah,
But
I really don't understand why there wasn't more solid interest in Austin, to be honest. I mean, there was
well,
small stories here and there, but nothing too concrete.
everyone knew the price.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
guess everyone thought there's only 1 year to wait for him, and then it was free. But kind of like the whole De Gea scenario.
Yeah, but I mean, it's kind of interesting when you've got Arsenal, Spurs, and yourselves really sort of on the market for a striker, and Spurs are throwing 22 or 24 million pounds at West Brom for Berahino. I mean, I wouldn't say that there is that much difference in caliber between Berahino and Austin.
Different players, but they're both at similar levels. You know, one small and quick, one debatably is a target man. Both good in the box. But the Berahino one was funny. Daniel Levy certainly not making himself any friends. I mean, the fact that I'm more inclined to believe what Jeremy Peace is saying than what Daniel Levy's saying. But Jeremy Peace come out and said they've only offered us 5 million up front as their best bid. The rest is all in instalments and add-ons. It's like, come on, mate.
Yeah.
I
Well, I mean, that
mean,
was the other.
seriously, if you're trying to buy a club's prized asset, like a 21-year-old, future England international, and you're offering 5 mil up front. I mean, get real.
That was the other interesting story out of the day was Berahino's tweet, and I think he's been pretty roundly criticised, and I would say rightly so, because if he has those sorts of issues with the club, I think he's best off dealing with it behind closed doors, not advertising it to the world on Twitter when there's that much media scrutiny on you at that point in time.
Or maybe contrast the way that Charlie Austin went about it by basically saying nothing,
Yeah.
and the way Berahino went about it.
I mean, the sense from Berahino's outburst is almost that he had an agreement in place where he would be able to go to Spurs, and the fact that that didn't occur has meant that he's kicked up a fuss. But if you're right that they've only offered 5 million up front, then that's really more a failing on the Spurs end than on anything that West Brom's done wrong.
Correct, correct. And it's not the first time that this has happened with Levy either. He does love to pinch pennies on clubs, change deals at the last minute, that kind of stuff. And some clubs just won't stand for it. I mean, there are agreements with players, kind of like how Pedro had a 150 million pound release clause or million euro release clause, but they had a gentleman's agreement at 30 million euros.
Yeah.
You know, that he could go at that price. But if you're in Spurs scenario, just pay what is worth, or pay it. At least meet them halfway. Don't just try and lowball them because you know that there's this side deal. It's kind of like I heard. I think it was Philippe Auclair talking about Wenger and that bid for Suarez
Yeah.
a couple of years ago, and his idea of value in the transfer market, and that 40 million and £1. And then they rejected it, and it was in his view that no, that's all Suarez is worth. I won't go above what the player's worth. So, come on.
Speak and then moving on to probably the other big deal from the transfer window that we haven't had a chance to touch on yet was De Bruyne's move that finally went through to Manchester City. What do you see him adding to that side that can? I mean, they're already looking pretty solid chances of the title to begin with,
Uh,
without him even setting foot on the pitch.
that City team's the kind of team that I end up after about the third season of playing FIFA. It's just like, I mean, the amount of ability they have in that team is quite exceptional. They still have holes defensively, but it's a bit of a strange one. I mean, there's no doubt that last year he was brilliant. It was sensational to watch. Everything at City at the moment goes through Yaya and Silva. De Bruyne needs to be fed the ball. So when he's playing for Belgium, when he played at Wolfsburg last year, everything went through him. Everything. I'm talking about everything. People get the ball, look up, where's De Bruyne?
Yeah.
And then play it to him and he'd create. And look, his creativity is amazing. How does he adapt to not being peripheral, but not being the centre of attention? And that's not from an ego perspective, but not getting the touches that he's used to. That'll be interesting to see how he adapts. But there's no doubt the abilities there. Can they cope with all those attacking players? De Bruyne's not going to track back. I'll tell you right now. Not that Pellegrini's ever really cared about players tracking back. So there might be a little more strain on them defensively. But then, I mean, they bring in Otamendi. He could prove to be their best signing of the summer because, I mean, he should play. He's better than Mangala without a shadow of a doubt. But for a team like City, with the team they already had, I'd argue that coaching was the problem last year more than anything else, or maybe the attitude of the players as well being a problem. But to bring in that kind of backup at centre half is quite exceptional. In addition to Sterling and De Bruyne.
Yeah, because I mean, as you mentioned, they have holes in their defence, so it'll be interesting to see how Otamendi goes, sort of sewing that together. I mean, their fullbacks at the moment are looking a bit thin with, I think, a couple of injuries to
Sanya?
Clichy and Sanya's been was injured in a European qualifier on Monday, I think it was, and also Zabaleta's out, I think.
Yeah, they'll be thin, and they loaned out Denayer. I think he might have gone to Marseille, actually. So I'm not. I mean, I'm just presuming that they've got some kids that they can put in that role or recall someone from loan. But yeah, they do look thin, and they don't have. They've got. I mean, these guys are good players. Clichy and Sanya, and especially Zabaleta. Maybe not now, but certainly was. But they're not at the caliber of a lot of their other players. So, but I'm sure in future windows they'll look to, I guess, improve the squad in those positions.
All right, so taking bias out of it, who do you reckon has won the transfer window? Who has had the most successful transfer window?
Wow. Man City, quite comfortably, I think. Well, actually, that's probably not fair. Man City, out of the big four clubs, debatably big six clubs, have had the best window.
I mean,
It's hard.
it's kind of staggering to think that at the start of the window, when there was the names like De Bruyne and Sterling thrown around, and we thought, yeah, they might get one of those at a stretch, but they've managed to capture both of those, and they've added Otamendi as well, and Delph in midfield if he can ever get fit.
Chisler
Gives you some
rates
decent
him
depth.
pretty highly, but I'm a little bit kind of skeptical. His prime is probably Gareth Barry in my opinion. But we shouldn't discount teams like Swansea and Leicester from this conversation. They're never going to have currently they don't have the ability to go out and get the calibre of players that City had. But the players they brought in have done exceptionally well. So we shouldn't just discount them for that
Yeah,
reason. And they're certainly up there.
and you could add Palace and West Ham as well to the same
Oh,
discussion. I mean, they
correct.
like we were saying before, the amount of talent those mid-table sides are able to bring in now really helps them push on, and the depth that they give them is probably the most important factor because I mean if we look at Southampton and West Ham last season, they pushed up early, and challenged for those sort of top four places, but really fell away because of depth and fatigue, I suppose, to their key players. So sides like Swansea, Palace, Leicester, even yeah, like you're saying, I mean, the depth that they've now got really makes the season quite interesting to see how the table will unfold.
Absolutely. How many strikers do Palace need? Jesus Christ.
Yeah, geez, I mean,
I tell you what, I watched their last game. Yannick Bolassi's gone to another level. I think he's so fun to watch. One
yeah,
on one, takes blokes on, direct. You know, shoots a lot, and yeah, it's an extremely exciting player to watch.
and even Sacco, who they've brought in from Wolves, I think, on a free transfer, has looked pretty promising. I mean, I think he scored the winner against Chelsea, and scored another goal as well. So he started his career with Palace very well. So I mean, yeah, they've got the strikers and they've also got a lot of attacking midfielders as well. But I mean, their defense still has that Pulis sort of touch to it um, from when he was there. With I mean, they don't concede that many goals, so looking a very well-rounded side at the moment.
Absolutely, they're playing. Yeah, they certainly played a lot better in terms of the brand of football last week, well, against Chelsea than Chelsea did against them. Chelsea were just hooping it up, whereas Palace actually brought the ball to ground, counter attack, breaking from midfield. Ball's always on the floor. Beautiful to watch.
Yeah. Well, on that topic, we might as well go on with the rest of the reviews from the last round of fixtures. So it was a pretty big shock to see Chelsea losing to Palace. It was only Mourinho's second home loss in charge, so um, it doesn't leave Chelsea in too good a position at this stage of the season.
The international break helps no club more than it helps them. They are so flat. It's not funny. There's no spark. I mean, Hazard's been poor. Well, he's not creating anything at all. They all trying to pass it to him and expect him to pull off miracles. Pedro's been their best player since he's come in. Costa's not doing much. He looks either half fit or disinterested. Uh, I think it's as amazing as it is to say. I think teams have worked out Fabregas. I think when teams have worked out that if you don't give him time on the ball, he kind of crumbles a bit. He's a little bit soft under pressure,
Yeah.
and he can't run both ways. He's just too slow. Matic has had a quiet start to the year. Obviously, they missed Terry through suspension recently. Ivanovic doesn't get out to the wings to defend his position quickly enough.
I don't understand
And
how Ivanovic
yeah,
is still on the side. He's got to be dropped this week, surely.
well, I've probably been leading that bandwagon for quite some time, to be honest. But what's interesting is Mourinho needs to freshen up this side. Now he brought on Kennedy, who replaced. Well, he basically played like a left back, left wing back role, and he actually took players on and beat players. I mean, it takes a while for people to get used to, I guess a left wing back taking people on left, right, and centre. But he added spark and drive going forward. Loftus Cheek the same. He started. I mean, if Fabregas isn't the Fabregas of early last season, don't forget he was no good in the second half or the late half, the late quarter,
But
last quarter of
he
last season
tends to
either.
do that, I think. Was it Barcelona when he transferred to Chelsea, released a set of stats about his seasons, and he always starts seasons quite well, but then fades in the second half of the season for one reason or another. So, I mean, in one sense, it wasn't a surprise the way he played the second half of last season, but it's surprising that he started this season so slowly.
Well, exactly right. And to be honest, like I don't think Chelsea, if they've got ambitions of winning the title, it's very early. But I don't think that they can just wait. I think they need to be proactive. Get that Kennedy playing from the start. I think from the start, taking on defenders. Loftus Cheek has to play instead of Fabregas, in my opinion. And where the hell is Loic Remy? What does that bloke have to do? I'd take him at Old Trafford right now. I mean, seriously, he's a quality, quick forward.
Falcao
Tap
was
out.
almost brought in as a third striker, but he's somehow jumped over it in the pecking order.
I mean, this is. I mean, I'm not sure. I'm not saying I agree fully with the argument, but the post on the board a thread by Go You Pups talking about kind of warehousing strikers or players that other teams are interested in terms of preventing them progressing. I mean, the Loic Remy scenario kind of feeds into that a little bit. How Liverpool, Spurs, they'd love a player like him right now.
Yeah.
Right now, Arsenal would love a player like him right now.
You look at the
And he's
purchases of
sitting
guys.
there third string.
You look at guys like Salah and Quadrado and stuff who were brought in and then basically sold off very quickly afterwards without much of a look in really.
Oh, that's right. I mean, imagine what the narrative would be if that was United doing that,
Yeah.
ruining football, or Manchester City. But the Salah one was quite interesting. I didn't really see him outside of pre-season. I mean, if you go off pre-season form, United's been the best team in the world the last 2 years. You don't go off pre-season form. They're saying, Salah started slow in pre-season, Quadrado too. Well, that doesn't matter. That's really irrelevant. It's about getting game time into the players, and really nothing more than that. You shouldn't read into those results. Kind of like when Carlton won the NAB Cup and the Spoon in the same season. You don't read into the pre-season too much.
Um, the other interesting aspect from the set of games on the weekend was the amount of red cards that we saw. I think Newcastle had one, Liverpool and West Ham both had one, Stoke had two, and I think was it Norwich had one as well. So it was a very card happy weekend all around from the referees. But it's been a while since we've seen a team go down to 9 men. I think, and of course, it was going to be Stoke.
Of course, just to feed the narrative.
Yeah, Charlie Adam as well.
Yeah, well, no, I've made my thoughts pretty clear on Charlie Adam last season. He's not in my, I don't like him too much because of the way he plays and he tries to maim other players. But I didn't actually see the Stoke match, but I did watch the Arsenal-Newcastle game, and that red card to Mitrovic, I thought that was extremely harsh. I think that referees have kind of heard a bit about his past, and they kind of feeding
he's
into
been
that.
getting a lot of cards to start his career with Newcastle.
I also think that opposition players know that too.
Yeah.
So Coquelin for Arsenal, I mean, is he the reincarnation of Perez? He is diving more than any other player in the comp at the moment.
Yeah.
It's like he gets the slightest touch and he's doing the old kind of jump up in the air.
Yeah.
Off both legs, almost like he's trying to do like high jump or something.
The irony is when he's on the other side, he goes in as hard as anyone with his tackles, and was lucky not to get sent off against Palace.
Correct. So I thought that, I mean, there's no doubt Mitrovic mistimed that tackle, but that's all it was. It was clumsy. Yeah. It wasn't, he wasn't trying to break the bloke's leg. It was just clumsy, and there were, equivalent challenges throughout that game. So yeah, I don't think that's indicative though of a change of refereeing in the comp. I think that players and the refs know this bloke has a history, and they're going to try and exploit it.
One of the big results of the weekend was West Ham's 3-0 win over Liverpool. I think it was their first win at Anfield since the 60s or something like that. So big result for them, and kind of continues Liverpool's stop-start to the season in a way. They haven't looked too convincing really in their opening fixtures.
Well, anyone listening to this, I hope you are not using my opinions to gamble with, because just to let you know, I said that Ranieri, the team command, was going to be no good and he'll get sacked pretty early. I said that Slaven Bilic doesn't know what he's doing. He's erratic from week to week. So, yeah, don't read too much into what I'm saying regarding previews of games. But they just played them off the pitch. It was quite bizarre. They controlled the game. West Ham were very level-headed. The Mark Noble red card was ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. I'd say that the Coutinho one was harsh too, but West Ham fully deserved that win. And without wanting to put the boot in too much, I did find it interesting that Anfield was basically half empty after about 50 minutes of the game. So maybe there's some pressure will come on from the supporters onto Brendan Rodgers, and there've been a couple of people. I mean, Faith loves talking about Van Halen more than her own team, but she said that this weekend's game, the bloke that loses, the manager that loses, will come under increasing pressure, and that's probably fair. Although for all people bagging out United, they are fifth.
Yeah, I mean, at least they're sort of pushing
They-
for that top four. But I mean, you are level on points with Liverpool, to be fair.
Yep. Yeah.
So it's not as if Liverpool's had that poor a start to the season, I suppose, compared to United, who
Well,
also lost
also
this weekend to Swansea. Well, last weekend to
we haven't
Swansea.
had it, but we don't have the advantage of the refs every week. So unlike them, where basically all their points have come from offside goals. Yeah. Anyway, not that I'm upset about that at all. But yeah, Swansea. We actually spoke about it last week. They have the wood over us, and it's always 2-1. I can't quite fathom it, to be honest. United need to be more clinical with that possession. It's all right having all that possession and perceived control of the game, but you need to put the ball in the net and turn dominance into 3 points. Last season, United dominated whenever they played the other kind of top 4 teams, excluding Chelsea, that got that jammy 1-0 win. But they struggled to put away the lower half teams. They're just trying to
Yeah.
park the bus. They'll let United have the ball.
I mean,
We're just trying to pass it around. So we need to convert them into chances.
yeah, I mean, I watched this game as well, and you're right. I mean, for the whole first half, basically, I think United were very much on top, but just couldn't really convert their chances. But I think it was Swansea's change of formation. I think they threw Ayew up front with Gomez, and that pair just looks so prolific at the moment. I think they've both got 4 goals or 3 goals each or something. So they've started the season very well. But Gary Monk has just started the season so well for Swansea, and to have 3 wins in 3 against United in his managerial career is, I mean, most managers would be pretty envious of that record, I think.
Well, there's already talk that when Roy Hodgins stuffs up at the next major tournament, that they'll give him the boot and offer the job to Monk.
I think I remember last pre-season we were all pretty, I wouldn't say critical, but apprehensive, I suppose, about the direction Swansea was heading in with Monk in charge, because this sort of player-manager turning into the manager doesn't usually work out for sides. But he's just gone from strength to strength at that club, and it's a real testament to how strong that club is in its foundations and its um, theories and strategies about football.
Absolutely, and they're a good team to watch. I mean, yeah, I'm really enjoying watching Andre Ayew. So they didn't they pinch Jack Cork from Southampton as well? He's
They
a very
did,
good
yeah.
player to watch. I'm not convinced by Shelby just yet. The England squad's, although it's a little bit all over the place at the moment. Plenty of blokes been given chances, which is good, but not many blokes get given these kind of chances in Euro qualifiers. But yeah, they've certainly got the makeup of a good young, exciting team. That's good.
And so, what was your main takeaway from that set of games? I guess if we're going to continue with this theme of what did you learn from that set of fixtures? What was your main takeaway?
My main takeaway is, well, outside of United needing to be more clinical, but that's something that I've known for the last 18 months. I guess my main takeaway is that it's very difficult to predict in this league due to the strength of the middle tier and even the lower tier clubs and all the players they brought in. There are literally no easy games in this comp anymore. They're not. Every game is difficult. We saw Bournemouth roll West Ham, who then roll Liverpool at Anfield. There are no easy games. The league is fantastic to watch, and yeah, looking forward to this weekend.
I guess my main takeaway would be that I completely agree with that point as well, and my other point would probably be that Man City are basically champions elect at this stage. I mean, they've beaten Chelsea with a clean sheet. They haven't conceded a goal yet in their first 4 games, and they've added talent on top of that in De Bruyne and Otamendi, and Sterling has found the back of the net against Watford. So they're really looking the complete package, and I think all that could let them down is, as you say, management. So it remains to be seen if Pellegrini can coach them over the line, but um, they're certainly looking head and shoulders above the rest of the competition at this stage. I think they've got Crystal Palace this week, so that's probably where our two talking points will collide, and we'll see if Palace,
Mhm.
as a mid-table club, can really challenge them. Ironically, Palace are actually coming second at the moment, but it'll certainly be interesting to see just how strong City is compared to the rest of the competition.
Top of the table clash.
Yeah, absolutely, top two clash. So that'll certainly be an interesting one. Speaking of top of the table clashes, we might segue there into a brief chat about the championship, where my mob are facing a top of the table clash with Brighton this weekend, happily sitting in second place after the international break. So it's been a pretty good start to the season for Hull, I must say. Probably our best business in the transfer window was actually keeping most of the squad together. We've kept Diami, who was, I was, to be honest, a bit surprised to see stay. He came out during the week and basically said he can't promise that he'll stay, but if he stays, he'll give his all for the club, give 100% because we supported him through his injuries. And he's a cracking player when he's on form. I mean, he started the season for us last year with goals against Arsenal and West Ham, and really looked the complete midfielder for us, and in a lot of ways reminded me of Yaya Toure in just his sort of
Ooh,
strength and shot power and skill on the ball.
yeah,
Um,
right.
I mean,
So,
obviously not saying he's the same caliber as Toure, just that style of player. Um, so he was almost our most important player that we needed to keep over the deadline day madness. But yeah, sitting in second place now. Hopefully we can kick on.
how's your defence coped with losing? Well, I guess James Chester and Paul McShane, and who's scoring the goals for you?
Well, we've got Dawson and Davies back in defence now, and Dawson was the other one I think most Hull fans were pretty worried about losing over the end of the transfer window. I think Sunderland were looking at bringing in another defender, and there was a bit of worry that he might be heading there. But Dawson and Davies have looked really good together at the back, and we've moved to a 4-4-2 formation, so having that third centre back isn't as much of an issue anymore. Though, as you'll know, I'm quite a big James Chester fan, so losing him was pretty heartbreaking. Um, the other end of the pitch is a slight concern because we seem to have this habit that strikers will come into the club and they'll score on debut, like Akpom did on his debut, but they don't really keep scoring after that. So um, we've been a bit lucky so far. We've had a penalty to help us get a point against Wolves that should have probably been 3 points. Um, and we've beaten up on a couple of the mid to lower championship clubs in Huddersfield and Preston and that sort of thing. Um, but this clash against Brighton, we've got a tough month coming up. We've got Brighton, QPR, and Cardiff as our three big clashes. But if we can probably get 6 or 7 points out of those, I think that would really sort of set us on our way to challenging at the top of the table.
I don't follow the championship too closely, but how's Bobby Zamora going at Brighton?
I think he's actually been injured. I don't know if he's started too
Uh,
many games for them. They've got Lua, who's scoring a lot of goals for them at the moment, and he looks a
just
real decent striker for them. And I know there was sort of talk that Ulloa might be rejoining them from Leicester, just on loan, because Leicester originally bought him from Brighton. So
mm.
with the loan window reopened now, it'll be interesting to see if he heads back there, because Ulloa and Lua up front would be quite a potent strike force for them.
So why didn't James Wilson end up at Hull? Is it because you didn't want to play? Hull didn't want to play two young strikers
Yeah, I mean,
together. Is there too much competition, or what? Yeah,
yeah, I mean,
what's the
I've,
deal?
I've had an interest in him all summer really because we've been perennially linked to him over the course of the summer. And Akpom was kind of a left field signing, so and I felt at the time that that might have ruled James Wilson out a little bit because, as you say, um, United would want to be sending him to a club where he'd be starting most weeks, and Arsenal would be wanting the same with Akpom. And for us, challenging at the top of the championship, you wouldn't really want to be resting all your hopes on two pretty young strikers who are out on loan. Um, we've brought in Adama Diomande from Norway, who had a scoring record of I think 17 goals in 21 games for this season, because I
Nice.
think the Norwegian season starts in January, so they're already about halfway through. Um, so he looks a decent signing for us. I mean, he was only I think almost £2 million, so if he doesn't amount to much, it's not too much of a loss. But we've managed to keep hold of Hernandez as well, who was linked to Italian clubs all through the summer, but has actually ended up staying. So um, it's going to be interesting. I mean, Akpom, Hernandez, and Diomande are probably our three strikers with Aluko as backup. But yeah, I just don't think there was room for Wilson.
Fair enough. Um, have you got an idea at this early stage of the season who are going to be the main contenders for the championship?
Um, I think Brighton have surprised people a little bit because of where they finished last season, but and certainly for them, their next few games, as with us, will probably set the tone for their season. So they're probably one of the early front runners that might be worth keeping an eye on. But apart from them and us sitting in first and second, QPR have certainly rebounded quite well. They lost on the first day of the season, which might have sort of set them back and had the negative doubts sort of circling in their minds, but they've done quite well on the back of Charlie Austin scoring a few goals for them. So if he can keep up his form from last season and scoring goals for them, they'll certainly be a threat. Probably the other one is Wolves. I think I mentioned them in one of the pre-season podcasts as an outsider for promotion, and with Benfica Afobe, who they brought in from Arsenal last season, I think, he's been scoring quite a few goals for them as well. So any of those four are probably the main contenders, and then you've got other sides like Ipswich and Derby if they can get it together now with Wilson coming in. But Derby are an interesting one. I mean, I've mentioned on the board a little bit the dangers that they're sort of gambling on. That the amount that they've spent, I think they've spent about 23 or 24 million pounds over the summer without selling any players. So if they don't get promoted, they might be in a bit of trouble with financial fair play. But I guess this if you're ever going to do it, this is the season to put all your eggs in one basket, I suppose.
Well, it's a real shame for them that they won't have Will Hughes. He's a really exciting talent.
Yeah, I think he blew out his knee on the first day of the season, so he's a massive blow for them. Which is what I was a bit surprised they brought in Wilson as a priority when they've already got Bent and Martin and Vyman as strikers, and Ince as well can play up there. When I would have thought that replacing that creative midfielder would be a higher priority for them, but we'll see how they go. I suppose they've started the season with 4 draws, so
Mm.
they'd want to get a move on and pick up a few points before too long because Brighton are already on 13 and we're on 10. So and obviously one of those sides will probably pull away a bit further this weekend. So um, they'd want to be picking up a few more points soon and getting up towards that top end of the table.
It's a long season.
It is. It's 46 games. It's a marathon, not a sprint. So we'll see how it goes. It's hard kind of getting used to the run of games that we get with the Championship compared to the Premier League because whenever there's a European game day for Premier League clubs, that means that there's Championship action going on. So it's been a pretty intense start to the season. We've also had League Cup games, so it'll be good to see how the side settles over the next few months and whether we can really push for that promotion spot and hopefully get straight back up to the Premier League.
Absolutely.
Anyway, we might draw to a close there. So thanks very much for coming on, Bojan.
No worries, mate. Thank you.
Thanks to everyone for listening in. Until next, well, actually, we'll do a podcast on probably Saturday morning to preview the games. So until then, we'll see you on the forums.